Welcome to the G-Spot.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Dgt-G-Spot, where hopefully I'm joined by Raymond. Yeah, I fucking knew you'd do it this time, you fucker. Yeah. How are you, Ray?
I'm doing very well. How's yourself?
I'm alright. It's been a long time since we've spoken.
Ages.
Thinking, as we were talking there, I was thinking we sound like a fucking... You know, like when you see people on TV and when they first are shown on camera, go, "Oh, hi mate, hey, how you doing?" You're like, "Well, I bet you've already said hello, like off camera." But yeah, so it's kind of like the bullshit part of TV, isn't it? But,
Yeah.
but yeah. So anyway, you're well, I'm well. Everybody can hear us, hopefully. And what is the G-Spot all about, racing? As I had to explain it all last week, do you want to explain to the folks what the G-Spot's all about?
The G-Spot is a wonderful area of fun, mishaps, and educational purposes.
Tickle here for more. Okay, we are potentially in for the longest G-Spot ever. Although, how long was the longest one we've ever done? Was it an hour and a half?
Something like that.
Hopefully it's not going to be that long. I mean, I am going to try and rush us through it a little bit.
I'm supposed to be live streaming tonight.
Yeah. I'm supposed to be having a wank tonight. Well, let's put it this way. Well,
You and your grips and your shafts and your balls.
Yep, absolutely. You got to keep them busy on a Friday night. Well, let's put it this way. There's so much on this G-Spot that I've resorted to having a beer while we're doing this one. So this could go very downhill. Oh, I know.
Not even got any.
Right. Well, that's disappointing, right? That it really is. However, perhaps not as disappointing as some of the things we might see on this G-Spot. Okay, we should mention, at the point of us recording this, there hasn't been any reports placed, or at least we've not seen them. So everything we comment is as just people, as commentators, as viewers and spectators. It's not as admins or stewards or anything like that, unless otherwise stated. Okay, so as in if a report comes in and we update it, blah blah blah, we will state this is the steward. You know what I mean? I've lost my train of thought then.
You're out of what?
Yeah, I lost my train of thought. Choo.
Well, let's chew onto the first one before it's in at 2 hours and 45 minutes long.
Well, yeah, that's true. I'll tell you what. Well, yeah, if I was better organised, then yeah, would be all right. I mean, so how do you think NASA organised their parties? They plan it.
All right.
Okay, should we get started on the first G?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get ready in 3, 2, 1, let's go. G1, race 3, is side-by-side allowed? Now, you'll remember this, Ray, from last week, although you weren't on the footage. You questioned whether SGP was ahead before the overtaking point. Well, it's hard to see from this angle, so let's have a look, shall we? The formation lap has been completed. The start of the go-no-go zone is this grey gantry coming ahead, and the drivers can't overtake until the next light gantry on the left-hand side, which is there. Oh. So, if we have a look at this from the side... Well, there's the light gantry that is the overtaking point. He's not overtaken Twilight. but he is in the process of overtaking as everybody else is single file. Those two got a good start. But is side by side allowed before the overtaking point?
I got no trouble for that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I get told off for that.
Yeah. Well, you see, that's what I thought. Now, unfortunately, no.
We're
Go on.
allowed to be Max Verstappen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't be up alongside. Yeah, that's right. Now, in this situation, nobody reported anything or said anything, and we didn't. I think if we'd have had a different view of it on the commentary, we may have highlighted it more at the time. But yeah, so I'd be tempted to say SGP, you naughty, naughty boy. Okay, he's not overtaken, but he's in the process of it. He shouldn't be alongside, should he?
No, not until after the light gantry.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll move on to the next one, seeing as we've got a lot to go through.
Yeah.
Okay.
One rule for
one rule for another. I know. Okay. In 3, 2, 1, let's go. G2 race 4. Don't worry, SGP. I will show you how it's done. Rich Blues. I wonder what Rich might be doing. Well, we did see on the race footage, Rich had an absolutely blinding start to the formation lap. Which I'm guessing, yeah, I can only guess he didn't know there was a formation lap. And yeah, what a move, what a move, what a move, what a not a move. I'd be tempted to say that could be worth more penalty points than Hay got last week.
Yeah. I'm on it overtake.
Well, yeah, how many unfair overtakes? Well, let's have a look, shall we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go, no go point. There. 6, 7. Can't overtake until this gantry. 8. Yeah, so, yeah, don't do that, Rich. Naughty, naughty. Now, admittedly, he was able to deal with it, sort it out. No problem. But that's not the end of it. Because this isn't a replay. This is the end of the formation lap, and this is the start of the race. Where we've already said where the go-no-go point is, that gantry there. And you can't overtake till the next one, and he's already up alongside Bob, and he's bump drafted Dave. Yeah, so, yeah. Well, we'll have another look at this.
Did get the gantries wrong?
I think they did, because I think Rich has expected everyone to go at this gantry, but nobody is, because it's not that gantry. So now he's thinking you can overtake at this gantry. So he goes for the move, and he bump drafts Dave, but Dave doesn't want to pass Gary because he can't till the second gantry. So we'll have a look from Dave's view. So Dave gets a nudge up the arse from Bob because Rich has hit him. So Dave's now like, oh shit. Now he's being pushed along while Dave's on the brakes thinking, fuck off, will ya? I can't overtake him, fuck off. But yeah, so now what I will say is, if Dave at any point was frustrated during the race, I think we should blame Rich for it because of the start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or we're going to have to create a rich G-Spot. Crumbles under pressure like a biscuit. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question for you though, mate. I mean, obviously we've seen that and we're taking the piss. I've no idea what I'd do if it was reported. Because he's definitely got it wrong.
You definitely got it wrong, yeah. But a gantry too early.
Yeah, a gantry too soon. Now, admittedly, you know, I will take a little bit of blame in that.
Shh, you're not supposed to.
Well, only in terms of having not shared the pictures, but I did share them before the race when Rich asked about it. And also they were on last week's race video, not this week's video just gone, the one before. So it was there and available. the next picture will be out sooner. But yeah, I think from a commentator's perspective, well done, Rich. It's really exciting. From an admin's perspective, what a bellend. No, I don't mean that. But
from a steward's point of view, what the fuck?
Well, yeah. But I don't know. I mean, let's put it this way: if race 4 of trying this format is the first time the start is a bit off, I'll take that.
Yeah,
because I'd have expected it in race 1, 2, 3. But
yeah.
Right.
Hopefully he's learned.
Well, as he learnt his lesson, we'll find out on next week's G-Spot when he's fucking overtaking everybody into turn 1 on the formation lap.
Yeah.
Right, should we move on to the next one?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's go.
In 3, 2, 1, let's go. G3, race 4. Has Bob been cornered by Gary? So having a look at Bob here, Almighty Nosh, as he's otherwise known. Now, we didn't really get to see much of this on the race footage. I think we did spot a bit of it on the pack cam. It's where Connor went deep, but we couldn't really tell what had happened. But this is one that we are aware of, because during the race, Gary did say to Bob, I think you might need to give the place back to Connor there. You've kind of hit him off the track. So I thought it'd be interesting to have a look at. And I'm going to give zero judgment on this. I'm interested to get your point of view, Ray.
There is a bit of contact as Bob goes in the inside. He's trying to keep it to the apex, but he does leave a car path there. Oh, I'm unsure. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's kind of exactly what I thought. I was like, well, I don't think...
I'd say more racing.
Yeah, I don't think Bob's necessarily done a lot wrong there. He's in control of his car. He's, like you say, he's left that. We'll see it here on this view. I mean, the move on Gary, absolutely fine. He's a little bit behind them, but Gary's already on the brakes a touch early, but he's already on the brakes quite a lot. Connor's only just started to apply them. So Bob making the move on Gary kind of works with the different braking. So see, Bob's not on the brakes yet, so this is a move yet, no problem.
He's getting on the brakes,
yeah. So the move then on Connor is kind of like, well, is he done it safely? It's risky. But I'm like, I don't know, because he's kind of done what we would want a driver to do if they were attempting an overtake. But I think this is one of those corners, isn't it, where we've all had to go up the inside at some point, and we've all got it wrong at some point, and every now and again we think we've got it right at some point. It may be one that's caught Connor a bit by surprise, but this is one of those, I think, where Bob wouldn't be able to sit there and go, fucking hell, Connor, what are you doing turning in on me? And maybe Connor perhaps can't really get too angry about this one, because it's one of those corners where it may be on. I think Connor's not realised that Bob's there. But as you say, it's kind of like Bob is at the apex. And it's like we said with Hay last week, what happens from this point on? If Bob can't leave a car's width, 100% it was never on. But he's able to leave that car's width, which then makes you think, oh, well, okay, so he's managed to control his car. Yes, there was a bit of contact, but I don't know. I don't know if it... I mean, yeah, I don't know if I could sit there and say, yes, he should have given the place back. But I can understand why Gary did it, why Gary said it, because it does kind of look like there's contact and he's off the track. But also it's easy for us to sit here and watch it in slow motion compared to when it's at full speed or full racing speed.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure of that one, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The stewards would go further in with that one.
I thought you were going to hear the stewards would go, fuck, it's an awkward one.
But personally, I'd say more a racing incident. There's been a little contact. Bob still left enough room for Connor on the outside. I'd say it was a racing incident.
Possibly. I mean, I'd probably have to look into it a lot more to perhaps view it. It's definitely one that would spark discussion with the stewards for certain. And I will point out as well, Bob did wait for Connor down the main straight, but at the time Bob did say, I don't think I really need to, but I will. So respect to you, Bob.
RESPCT or whatever the fuck it is.
REPEC. Yeah. Have you ever watched what's the movie?
Allergy.
No. We're the Millers.
I've seen it once.
Yeah, it's got a right fit bird in it, and she ends up hooking up with this really thick guy who's got a tattoo on his chest that says "No regrets."
Right.
Instead of no regrets. He's like, yeah, man, no regrets. He's like, you sure? None? No regrets at all? Yeah, no regrets. But yeah, so, I mean, that's one of those where, as well, I mean, quite often we would say, if you're unsure if you should give the place back, give the place back, and then there's no harm, no foul. And it's one of those things where, if you give like in this situation, Bob's given the place back, and if hopefully Connor will see this or Gary will see this and everybody else will see this and go, oh well, you know what, fair play to Bob, he's doing the right thing, okay, in this instance, and he's trying to do the right things, and that's the minimum we can ask for, really. And then what Bob will hopefully find is that if things are happening to him, he will see it reciprocated. Because if you remember, when Bob first joined, we did say at the time, Bob, don't be like spooked if you end up on the G-Spot a lot. Some of it's going to be learning, some of it's going to be getting used to how we do things, some of it might be you do some dodgy stuff, but everybody does at times. But yeah, that was an awkward one. But Gary, well done for stitching Bob up and making him lose places, because not that we saw it on the footage. Would you like to know how many places Bob lost when he gave the position back to Connor?
How many?
3. He let a car pass that was ahead of Connor, then he let Connor pass, and then Dave the Armstrong passed as well. So yeah, Gary stitched him right up.
Jesus.
But this is why.
Gary.
Yeah. Well, this thing, you know, last week, not that anybody heard your opinion on it, but when we had that one with you and Dave the Harp, where SGP said, I don't know. I know there was a bit of contact, but I don't know what you should do. I think this may have been one of those situations as well, because I think from my mind in that one, if Bob had gone, oh right, I didn't know I'd knocked him off, I didn't think I'd done anything wrong, sorry if I did, Connor, but I didn't think I did, and carried on, okay, he's not giving the place back, but at least it would be apologising if he'd done anything wrong. Because it's one of those things, if you 100% believe and know that you didn't do anything wrong, which then gets backed up if a report is placed and the stewards 100% agree with you, then I could understand someone going, well, I'm not going to give you the place back because I 100% know I don't need to. But if you 100% don't need to, and then it turns out you do, then having that attitude ain't going to get you very far very quick. So it's not like people can go, well, I know I don't need to give the place back, if when it's looked at you go, well, actually you should have done. So there you go. Hopefully I've covered the trapdoor that I uncovered there.
Alright, will we go on and then might forget?
Yep. Okay, should we go on to the next one?
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1, let's go. G4, race 4, Fuji. It's a love-hate relationship. Okay, we're having a look at Dave here, and you know what? I think this might be to do with the different lines through the corners, you know, through this final section. So we've got Dave behind, SGP, Rich there, Gary and Bob there. So we can see 4 sort of different lines. Bob gets up the inside, a little bit of contact there with Dave. Oh, this is the one where we saw this bit on the race footage, Dave being spun. Right, okay. So we didn't see everything that built up to the big spin on the start-finish straight. So let's have a look then at what sort of triggers this. So Dave's ahead of a few of the guys, takes a slightly tighter line, but there's Bob with that really tight line. And then in comes Rich and gives Dave's a little bit of a spin. So let's have a look from Rich's view, shall we? We do get to see a few different lines here from all of the cars ahead. Bob's coming through there quite quick, goes for that tight inside line. Is a bit of contact. Oh, there was someone's bonnet. Yeah, someone's car appeared in Rich's arse end then. Yeah, go hello, Gary. So let's have a look from Gary's view, shall we? 2, 3, 4 G-spots in, and Gary's in 3 of them. Okay, so we're going to see a lot of different lines here. Gary takes that really wide line, which gives a brilliant mid and exit, but tags the back of Rich. Rich tags the back of Dave, and Dave spins. Okay, so there's a few things to cover here. One is the move Bob does on Dave, as to whether we think that may be fair or not. It's
a different line, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this thing, is a good car length or so back from Dave, but we know this corner, and people can take that inside line and end up in this position. So this is a little bit like the other one, I think, where, I mean, Bob's got himself into this position. He now needs to kind of be in control of his car, which he's eking a little bit away from the curb as Dave, as there's contact between the two. Yeah, Dave's going for the corner. So then it's like, well, Bob, where's your car ended up? Because if you've gone into this corner way too hot, I'd expect him to be over where SGP is, but he hasn't ended up there. Now, is that because of the contacts? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. Now, for Dave, he's on a slightly tighter line than SGP. And from this camera angle, you will see it does look like Bob appears quite late. And Dave may not have expected Bob to be there at all. I think this is a little bit like the other one, but also not like the other one from earlier, where in this instance, I can understand Dave perhaps being frustrated with Bob there, because we'll get onto that in a moment. Sorry, there is a point I want to make, but we'll see how this footage goes. I mean, we've talked before about how off this mirror is, so I can understand, though, from Dave's perspective, how it looks like Bob's come in there way too hot, way too late, and has hit him. But I think it's one of those where, from each driver's perspective, it looks like the other person has driven into them. So when we were following Bob, it looks like Bob's gone up the inside and Dave moves over to Bob. But when we're on board with Dave, it looks like Bob's gone up the inside and come across into Dave. So I could understand anyone in Dave's position getting a bit frustrated by that, and I will admit, I fucking hate that corner for people making that move up the inside, because it makes you go so slow, and taking that line is fast in, slow out. And it's one of those where we've all been the victim of that overtake, and I'm pretty sure we all fucking hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But is he wrong to attempt that?
I'm not too sure if he was to attempt it. But there's so many things to look at. The contact, does that keep Bob within that tighter line? Quite a possibility it did. Possibility no, he was having his car on that tighter line on the exit, and then I don't know if it was wrong. I think wrong's the wrong word. Maybe it was an adventurous overtake,
Ambitious
attempt. ambitious.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking back to way before we did the G-Spot, which, I mean, I know SGP hates this corner for people doing this overtake as well, because he lost a race because of somebody doing it. And it was almost identical to this, SGP on the slightly wider line and Hulkenberg up the inside, and there was a bit of contact. But I know you covered it in commentary. It is one of those corners where there are different lines you can take into the corner, and they do converge. So at the time, I can fully understand anybody getting frustrated by it, but I'd also, I don't know, I think for myself, I've learnt that because you can see how much quicker a car can go up that inside on the way in, what could be deemed as fair range or potentially close enough to have a cheeky look, maybe a bit bigger than other corners. So yeah, it's. I mean, yeah. So as I was saying, from my own experience, it's one I wouldn't get annoyed at somebody doing it to me. I might tell them to fuck off, but I wouldn't get annoyed at them going for it. But at the same time, yeah, I hate it when people try. And to be honest, I actually hate it when I try it myself. I really do hate it when I'm in a situation and I end up going for that move. But that's because I know how much I hate being on the receiving end of it. But yes, I mean, it's one of those where, like you, I don't think Bob's necessarily done anything wrong there. It's not a dive bomb. I don't think it's a late move. I think it may be a bit of an ambitious move. It would have been interesting to see how that could have finished off had Gary not punted Rich into Dave. So what do you reckon to that bit?
Yeah, initially I think we thought it was Rich spinning Dave, but yeah, Gary think me Rich into Dave.
Yeah, I mean
Gary's fault.
Yeah, Gary's fault. I mean, I could understand Rich not realising he was perhaps nudged from behind because he was all over the curb. But Gary, though, considering that you asked Bob to wait for Connor for knocking him off the track, you've got to punted Rich into Dave, into a spin. They're both waiting. Are you fucked off up the road? The G-Spot is named after you, isn't it? But maybe Gary didn't know that it hit Rich, or knew that it hit him but didn't think that's what had caused the spin. I don't know. I'm sure Gary will tell us. But yeah.
You'll not take the blame. Come on.
That's true. Right, should we move on to the next one?
Yep.
Getting hot, sweaty. I don't know why. Maybe it's the alcohol. Okay, let's get ready for the next one in 3, 2, 1, let's go. G5, race 4, Demon Dive Bomb. Now, this was one in commentary where I sort of jokingly said, silky move, because the silk cut on Art Pal's car.
Yeah, I remember this one.
Yeah. Now, it is an interesting one. I mean, it does lead into one hell of a battle through a few corners here, which we don't get the best of views on the spectate mode, but we'll have a look in other views in a moment. I mean, 3 wide into that chicane is not the best of things to do. But we're going to see different factors of racing here. Now, I have gone round the outside, up the inside of SGP, up the inside of Art Pal, made the move. There is a little bit of contact. So a view from SGP's car. I could go into more detail right now, but I don't want to. I'll mention it in a moment. So yes, we see the move there. We'll have a look from Art Pal's view. So if he comes around the corner, he actually gets hit by SGP, but it's not a hit nor there. Now this is what leads on to the battle down the hill. Now in a moment I will mention something else that Ray can go back and look at while we're talking about it. And viewers can. Okay, so Art Pal goes a little bit deep. That ends up with us being 3 wide. SGP tries to squeeze it a bit. Art Pal, Yeah, there's not a lot in any of that. I'd say that's all fair in the end. So yeah, no major dramas, no major disasters. Steve F1 though thinking, stop fucking blocking the road. As we go 3 wide through the corner. I mean, that bit there with SGP and Art Pal, I mean, that could just be the overlap of the arrow and Art Pal not realising SGP still had a bit of a nose there. But SGP potentially put himself into a slightly risky position there. But, and I'm not making excuses for myself, people can judge whether they think that was a dive bomb or not. What I will say though is I'm going to mention something now, and then people can go back and have another look at it. And that is, it's not a dive bomb. No, what I was going to say was, when we watched the race, we were able to see that SGP and Art Pal through that race were fuel saving. They were on a 1-stop strategy compared to others being on 2-stop strategy. So if you actually look at the speed difference between the cars through that long right-hander between Art Pal, SGP and Demon R, there is a big difference. Now that difference has been, in my perspective, because I did it, has been aware of for the whole of the previous lap, where I was gaining on them where they're fuel saving and I'm not. So as I've come round that corner, I'm already thinking I'm going to go for the move here because I am quicker around this corner while they're fuel saving. So for me, I have to hit those marks. Don't brake late, be in control of my car, don't understeer, hit the apex, leave space on the exit. So if you go back and look at all of those factors, you'll be able to see the speed difference. And if I manage to hit those factors. Now, admittedly, it is a little bit unfair that I'm here and I can talk about that. And other drivers aren't here to not necessarily defend themselves, but explain themselves. But I will happily admit defeat if people feel that was too late of a move, too aggressive of a move.
Well, you were 4 miles an hour faster before hitting the brakes. But from the commentary view that we get, it looked like a dive bomb, but when you actually go on board, you're not that far behind them.
Yeah.
I'm just
rewinding like that far back.
I think you were within the limits of, can I make a move here? Yeah.
And
there was a little bit of contact, but that's racing.
Yeah, and that's where I'm not going to turn around to Art Pal and go, what are you doing turning in on me? Because I'm aware if I'm going to go for a move up the inside, there is a chance they may not be aware of it. Now, SGP knows it's happening because he's had a lot more experience around that track, and he knows where people are going to like to try and make an overtake, and that's one we all like. I mean, you've done it to me, I've done it to you, we've done it to each other. And it is an overtake that you can make work if you're close enough, you've got the right speed, you're in control of your car. But that's one of those where if I'd have understeered at any point, I'd have been like, yeah, go on, Art Pal. So that's one of those where I'm 100% right. No, I'm joking. But having said that, there was another incident that I was involved in that I forgot to record actually, where I made an attempted overtake on Bob, which we saw on the footage. We didn't see me hit Bob, but we saw me let Bob through. In the middle sector in the horrible tight corners. I went for a move up the inside. I understeered into the side of him. We both stayed on the track, but I got ahead. I didn't feel that was fair, and I've let Bob through. Bob at the time was like, so I don't mind. I mean, it wasn't much. It's like, yeah, it wasn't much, but it wasn't a fair move on my part because I was understeering. But yeah. So everyone else can give me shit now for the dive bomb on that one. I mean, the true key is if Art Pal's reported it, We know he's not happy with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that something that drivers should factor in, or the stewards should or could factor in? You've got drivers who are fuel saving compared to drivers who aren't fuel saving.
Not necessarily. It was more of the position of your car at the time.
Well, I was going to
I'd say it was more in fair range for an overtake. Fuel saving, and it's adding more variables.
It is. I'd probably say yes and no. So, if somebody is fuel saving and somebody behind them isn't, that doesn't give that person behind them the right or entitlement to come through from any distance, at any corner, at any time. But let's say, for example, if we've got, I'm trying to think of, okay, the Suzuka, the two Degnas. We've got a car that's fuel saving ahead of a car that isn't fuel saving. If the car behind hits that car ahead because they've been caught out because the other guy's lifted coasted, it doesn't mean they're going to get away with anything, but you'd be able to look at it and go, okay, SGP's doing a bit of fuel saving. I don't know why I said SGP, probably because he normally does fuel saving, but the car has fuel saving, and the reason the car behind has hit them is because they've been caught out by it. That doesn't mean it lets them off with anything. But it's also like, okay, if cars get close in braking zones, a car that is braking that's fuel saving is going to brake differently to someone that is pushing it to the limit and braking at the limit. But there is a fine line between braking at the limit and braking beyond the limit, having a crash with a car and saying, well, I was faster because they were fuel saving. So, well, you might be. But if you brake too late to fucking make the corner, you're at fault, aren't you?
Yeah.
Hopefully that's another trapdoor closed. I shouldn't drink while doing the G-Spot. Okay, should we move on quickly?
Yeah.
Right, on to the next one then. In 3, 2, 1, let's go. G6, race 4. Busy, busy, busy. Doesn't do it justice. Okay, what we've got here then? So, we're on with Bob. Bob. We didn't see it. Right, we don't really see this on the race footage. We see it a little bit on the pack cam. And we see a little bit of this battle now, I think, on the race footage. It does get very busy in this middle sector. We don't get to see a lot from these camera angles, but it's an interesting situation where during the race, I mean, we said about the different lines through the corners and how speed difference can be involved. And there's Bob on that tight line again. We mentioned it in the race footage. So let's go back and have a look. So it's from quite a long way back. There's a few interesting points here. SRI and Bob both go for that gap between the Dave and SGP. Both realise they can't get in it. Bob does tag Dave a tiny little bit into the first part of the hairpin, and then it does get a little bit messy. Don't see it there, but SRI's just attempted a big overtake, and then Dave's potentially squeezed Bob off a little bit there, but we'll get onto that in a moment. We're going to see Bob's late move, his move up the inside again. I mean, it's an interesting one. If I could pause it and draw lines about the car's positions, that'd be interesting in that final corner. So we're going to look at it from Richard's view. There's SRI and Bob going for that same gap, realising, oh shit, no, can't make it. There's the little nudge from Bob on Dave. Now, this is where, for me, Bob should have backed out of this one. Because of that little touch on Dave, probably should have backed out of it. SRI, dive bomb.
You just missed that.
Big time. But yeah, so he got it a bit wrong. SRI got that one right, though. So yeah, if you look at it like Dave and Bob now, their parallel lines isn't that different, but because they're on opposite sides of the track, it does make it difficult. So there's the one car gap that two don't fit into. Now SRI and Bob actually are on the brakes a little earlier than the cars ahead, so this is all good so far. I believe Bob maybe then gets caught out a little bit as Dave comes on the brakes again a little bit later. They kind of get closer and open the gap, and then Bob's going to come forward and just nudge Dave. And it's this contact for me that I would say, yeah, okay, Bob, you probably shouldn't be going past Dave on the exit of this corner. And it's going to sound bad, but if he doesn't do it, the rest may not happen. But anyway, so that little bit of contact is not massive, but Bob probably shouldn't be attempting the overtake here. Back out of this one, let SGP and Dave the Harp go through the corner. So the opportunity was kind of there for Bob, I think, to lift off and let them go. Now, Dave and Bob there, that can happen. SRI. Oh, we're going to slow motion it. Oh, no. Lovely slotting through the gap. But I must admit, this bit is where I think I would have a little bit of concern, because Dave kind of goes out towards the edge of the track and Bob is there. And there is a bit of contact between the two. I don't know if that sends Dave's car on a bit of a wobble, which is coming now. And then there's a bit more contact. But I think that's one of those where Dave, I think, needs to have given Bob the space there. Now, as for this bit, this is kind of what I was on about like with how parallel the cars are. Like Bob's front isn't that far in distance away from Dave's rear. He's up that inside tight line again. It's different to the one earlier. They are on different angles, and there is a little bit of contact again. But I think this is one of those where I think this is just two lines that converge.
Yeah, because Bob has kept it to the apex more this time than he did the last time.
Yeah. Now, again, I wouldn't be surprised if from this late. So from that view, it looks like Bob comes in really late. So I can see it from sort of either side in a way. It's, as we've already discussed, it's that move that is. It's annoying, but I don't think there's a lot wrong there. As bad as that, it's not bad that it sounds. This is the alcohol talking.
It's just the two lines meeting, and when it does happen, there is contact, and one driver's going to say, "Oh, why you hitting me?" And the other one's going to say, "No, you're hitting me."
Yeah, you're turning in on me, or you're throwing it up the inside.
But it's just the two different lines, and it's not like he's came from far back. He was quite. They were quite close, as you say, kind of parallel lines.
Yeah. And it's not like he's gone in there so fast, so late that he's got no chance of making the. You know, like when people go for the move in turn 2 at Red Bull Ring, and you know they're so late on the brakes, they're not staying on the road. It's not like it's one of those either, is it? So, but I mean, I can fully understand being in Dave's seat there and thinking, what are you doing up there? But at the same time, I could understand somebody being on the inside line going, I can get in here.
Yeah.
As for the bit before, I mean, you sort of said, yeah, when Bob had that little nudge on the back of Dave before the chicane, any thoughts on that?
The nudge, yeah, you seen he was pushing Dave sideways for a bit, but I think it just got a wee bit too messy at the end of it.
Yeah.
With the left-hand corner before, like, the double left-hander before the last corner.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that.
So I think that just got a wee bit too messy, and guys just needed to settle down.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things I think where I can understand anybody getting frustrated if they feel they're constantly being hit or nudged. And it can be frustrating. I've been there. I've been the one doing the nudging, and I've been the one being nudged. It's not that often, though. It's only when I'm in the basement. But there's different situations in all of that where, like that bit with Bob, if there was a little bit of a nudge, it's nothing massive, but yeah, really shouldn't be going for the overtake. The bit after that, Dave may be annoyed. He's gone for the move on Bob, but then he's gone all the way to the edge of the track while Bob's still there. And once that happens, you're then in a situation where, because I was thinking about it when I recorded it, if you're in Bob's, and because this isn't an easy one, by the way, to comment on either. If you're in Bob's position, you'll feel like you've been forced off the track, and you'll probably also feel like you have every right to get yourself back on the track. You shouldn't have to be lifting off and backing out, as long as you're not returning to the track unsafely. But I think Dave should have left him a car's width for space there. And it's one of those where maybe it's got a little bit messy in that chicane. It's then got a little bit more messy. And then when it progresses to the final corner, it's piling on. So yeah, I think it's one of those situations where we remind everybody, let's not be passing people when we've hit them first, or second or third, and yeah, let's try and always give people room. Anything else you want to add? I don't know if I've explained myself properly there or not. Just remember, folks, I have been on the beer. It's been a long day, and it's been a long G-Spot. Okay, so we'll move on.
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1, let's go. G7, race 4. Why always me? Who are we on then? Oh, we're on Bob. Oh, hello, Bob. Oh, it's wide. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So I don't think it's necessarily why always me about Bob. It's why always me for Rich Blues. Now this is a classic situation, actually. Bob gets wide, spins it, nothing Rich could do. Yeah, I mean, I think once you see all the angles here, yeah, it'll be interesting to get your thoughts on this one.
Bob just lost it on the curb, and Rich Blues had nowhere to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's massively unfortunate for Bob. It's massively unfortunate for Rich. I mean, mentioned a few times, there's corners around this track that'll spin you if you get a bit wide, and that is one of them, and Bob has found that out. Rich absolutely had nowhere to go, but I guess I'd beg the question, should Bob have waited for Rich?
Or did they not wait?
No.
Well, no, that's a hard one, because
You
Bob
like
had
it
his own-
hard.
Because Bob had his own moment and Rich was just collected. I don't think there's nothing Bob could do because he wasn't in control of his car.
It's not an easy one. I mean, when I saw this when I recorded it, it's another one of those was like, oh, I don't know. I'd have to have a think about this, you know. I'd have to have a conversation. If it come to it, like if it was reported, like if let's say Rich had reported this, and we had to look at it as stewards, I'd have to be up for an open conversation about it because it's not straightforward. It's not like Bob has hit Rich off the track. Bob's had a crash, hasn't he? He's in the middle of crashing. Yeah. When technically Rich has hit Bob and Rich has ended up spinning. So it's kind of like, well,
I wouldn't say Bob would have to wait because he wasn't in control of his car. He was in the middle of the crash, and it was just unfortunately that Rich got collected.
I mean, I could imagine having a conversation of, you know what, there's no way it's worthy of a penalty to Bob. And it's not a situation where we would say, I think he should have waited. But maybe it's one of those situations where some people may go, you know what, I fucked up there, Rich. Apologies. I'll let you come through anyway, mate. Don't think it's something we could necessarily enforce in that situation because he's having a crash and Rich is just massively unlucky.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I could understand perhaps if Rich felt that Bob should have waited for him. But yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, definitely not straightforward, that's for certain.
No, it's not straightforward at all.
Nope. Talking about straightforward, I stayed up all night last night trying to figure out where the sun was. Then it dawned on me.
And on to the next one.
In 3, 2, 1, let's go. G8, race 4. What's that saying about 2 buses? What's this all about then? Okay, what we got? We've got Art Pal, SRI, Dave the Art, and Bob. Art Pal not defending, goes for the racing line. Oh, SRI, a little late. Dave the Art, a bit later. A little bit of contact. Art Pal sideways. I don't think we saw. Did we see that on the race footage? Oh, I can't remember. Okay, so looking at it from Art Pal, SRI goes to the move. Art Pal looks switched back. Dave's got his nose in there. And half a spin. So let's have a look at it from SRI. Oh, SRI got a little nudge from Dave there. So SRI's not really done much wrong there. Dave is a little late on the brakes. A bit of a touch on Ray that we saw. There's a bit of contact there, but let's have a look from Bob's view. Does Bob get involved? No. Yes. No. Let's have a... Okay, so we'll have a little look in slow motion. Okay, so Dave's car is kind of... It's there.
Yeah.
It's getting on the... Art Pal's coming across a bit. And there is a bit of contact. I mean, looking at that, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, Dave may have come into the braking zone a little bit hot. Let's have a look from Art Pal's view here. Yes, so I think Dave's coming a little bit hot because he's kind of over there on the right, but I could imagine being in Art Pal's position and thinking you were clear to turn in and go. Dave gets part of his car alongside now, and that's where the contact is. For me, I'm looking at that and thinking, is that... For me, that's one of those where... The car on the outside, I don't think can really, be too frustrated about a car being on the inside. And I don't think the car on the inside can be too frustrated about the car on the outside turning in. Because it's kind of one of those where the crossover of the cars happens so late in the corner that it'd be easy for Art Pal to not realise Dave's there at that point. So he's going to turn in for the corner. So if you're in Art Pal's position, for me, you turn in, you have that contact, and you go, oh shit, I didn't know you were there. And if you're in Dave's position, you're up the inside, you're like, oh shit, I'm here, mate. But it's not like it's one of those where I was up alongside you all the way through the braking zone and you should have known I was there. It's one of, it does happen quite late. I don't know what your view is on that.
Yeah, and there's a late one, but yeah, a wee bit more room, possibly. Like once they realised they were going to be coming together, I think Dave the Hub actually has a wee bit of a moment on the curb,
yeah,
that kind of straightens him up, so he's not turning as he was doing to begin with, because he was following the apex until he started bouncing on that curb, the apex curb. So that added a wee bit of factor in there. I can't blame either one of them for this one.
No.
I think it's that late into the corner. And, yeah.
I think that's like a big part of it, that the crossover is so late into the corner that, yeah, if for the car, it's a bit like with Dave at the final corner with Bob up the inside. It does happen a bit later into the corner, which makes it a lot harder for that car on the outside to realise that car's there. In some respects, it's very similar to those situations, isn't it? Where you've got a car on an outside line looking at doing a completely different line to the car on the inside. So yeah, I think that's a case of, I think in that one, neither driver can really get too miffed about that one, because yeah, it can happen, and it's like I've said before, there's a big difference between what is a dive bomb, what isn't a dive bomb, what is a late move into a corner, what isn't a late move into a corner, what is turning in on somebody at the apex and what isn't. Because it's one of those things, like if you've got two cars going down a straight side by side and the car on the outside goes to turn in for the apex and the car on the inside is next to him, that's a no. But if it's a situation where the car on the inside is behind and it's possible the car ahead doesn't have the opportunity to realise they have got up the inside, then that's where the drivers have to have cooler heads and go, okay, you didn't see me, no problem. Carry on.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
Yep.
Okay. Why do women wear underwear?
I don't know.
Because health and safety say that all manholes must be covered when not in use.
And on to the next one.
In 3, 2, 1, let's go. Gee whiz! Not what it says on our screen there. It's fuel, baby. Fuel, baby. Now, this is what we did see at the end of the race footage. Art Powell heading to the line in fourth, but lifting off and slowing down a bit, I believe, to not get the next lap. He wasn't out of fuel, and SGP steals the position off him. Now, SGP's got loads of fuel, we know that. And you'll see when Art Powell lifts, because SGP closes in, now the speed difference. So Art Powell is trying to avoid getting the extra lap. SGP makes the move, it's almost as close as Art Powell and Twilight at Le Mans. We're actually going to look at how close this was. So as we flick forward, so SGP getting up alongside, the finish line is approaching. So if we look on that timing tower on the left to when SGP's name pops above Art Powell, there we go. How many frames more? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, until the flag, 6, 7, maybe 8 frames until the flag comes. But Ray, go back and have a look because it's just finished on us. Art Powell lifted off to avoid getting the next lap. What's the time in the bottom left corner say when they're at the finish line?
40:06.
Which would suggest that Art Powell...
Well, 40:07, near enough.
Yeah. Which would suggest that Art Powell didn't need to lift. Because when they got to the finish line, they were there 7 seconds after the checkered flag had fallen.
Yeah, I would have just kept the foot down, and if I had to do another lap with no fuel, then I would have done.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then he still has that thing of, because the final lap doesn't come up till very late.
On that, yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's on the replay or not. But yeah, on that video clip that we have, it doesn't come up till late. But yeah, now, unless what we're seeing on that replay is wrong, It shouldn't be. No, that what's in that bottom left corner should be. That's the race time. But having said that, I mean, it could be an experience thing for Art Pal because not raced at Fuji very often, may not have realised exactly where the finish line was, and may not have known what would happen if he crosses the line, gets the extra lap, and then runs out of fuel. Because, I mean, that is an interesting scenario which hasn't happened before, because obviously there's a time clock once the race is finished. But if you've run out of fuel and you're on the extra lap and you don't get to the finish line before that clock runs out, are you classified in that position?
Oh, that's another thing. I don't know. We've not been in that situation.
I mean, I'd be tempted to say yes, because the only reason they haven't got to the end is because there's a clock that has ended. If that clock hadn't have ended, they would have been able to continue round at 50 mile an hour. So, yeah. But it's unfortunate for Art Pal because he's tried to save himself a lap, which, yeah, he probably wasn't going to end up having to do anyway. And SGP stole the position off him. Massively unfortunate. Maybe kicking himself about that one. But yeah, it can happen.
Yep.
Right, and I think that's it. I think we're done.
We're done.
Yeah, woohoo, finally. Hey. And let's not forget, everybody, the G-Spot is not about picking on people or pointing out anybody's flaws, apart from mine when I've had a drink. It is about educating, having a bit of fun, and if anything does get reported, we can obviously have a look at it. And also, if people do amazing overtakes and they tell us about it, we can have a look at those as well. Bit like Hayes' what a move last week. Sorry, I shouldn't wind them up. But yeah. Okay, right, Ray, thank you very much for joining us on the G-Spot.
No worries, thank you for having us.
You're welcome, and we shall see you all soon for the next instalment of the G. See you in a bit.